Welcome to R.E.A.L.Talk Coaching, where we challenge the blueprint life hands us and create our own. This isn't just a podcast, it's a living room conversation, a space for honesty, community, and real talk about what success and happiness mean for us. Here, our voices and our stories are power, and together we'll share tools, insights, and conversations that help you take real steps towards the life you want. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk Coaching, where we are reimagining everything about life. We're glad that you're here. We like talking about the real stuff. And today we have a great special guest for you. We will be asking, how do we redefine leadership through coaching? And we're excited about today's guest, Dr. Pat Perkins. She is a certified leadership strategist, coach, and speaker who helps leaders show up with purpose, clarity, and heart. And you're going to feel her wisdom in every word she says today as we talk about what it really means to lead from the inside out. And so I will turn it over to you, Dr. Pat.
Awesome. Well, hello everyone, and it's an honor to be with you today. So, Coach Terry, Coach Sharon, Coach Tara, um, you all are doing some really amazing work, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. So, I'm going to share my screen and then just have us walk through this conversation together. And let's see here. I think this is going to be, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, what I want to share with you today is this unpacking this conversation, right? Redefining leadership through coaching. And, I would be remiss if I didn't just talk about a little bit about how this aligns with purpose and with performance. Because right now we are in a state or in a place where we need to be more purpose driven. We just cannot just overperform and we can't just do things that are we're being told to do. We really need to look at what's the purpose, what's the why behind it, be more strategist, be more of a strategic thinker. And so that's what I'm all about today. So here, I just wanted to say that my leadership was really not born in the boardroom. It actually was forged in the middle of change. So change in terms of growing up in the city of Chicago on the South Side, change in terms of being the youngest of four women. I was born into a sisterhood. And when I say that's change, it's because it's something to be born with three older women, three older sisters. Like that was a lot to deal with. But there was a lot of change happening. I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, so there was a lot of transformation happening in those times. And I found myself just kind of looking around, going, why is this happening? Why is that happening? And so, as I got into more of the leadership roles, I will say this: I interned into a tech role. And if you can kind of go back to the 80s with me, some of you may be able to go back there, some of you may not be able to go back there. But the 80s was really the boom, right? It was the boom of computers, tech was really hot. And I literally got hired from an internship into the only person who was hired at a big company. It's not there pretty much now, but Montgomery Ward's in their word processing department with a bunch of ladies who were, I just sat at their feet and learned. But the change came very quickly because the last one hired was the first one fired. And so found myself looking for an opportunity and looking in the newspaper. I know I'm going way back. But my mentor at the time, who was the person who actually hired me into the one role and the one opportunity that was available out of 12, she helped me get a position in less than 3 weeks. And that was really about my first lesson of who you know in the world really makes a difference. Who you know makes all the difference in the world. So you can read about some of my stats here. The biggest thing that I'm really I'm happy about all these things, but being an AI consultant as well as this being a recipient of the Chicago Defender Women of Excellence Award back in 2014 was really one of the highlights of my life. So let's talk about a couple of things here that is causing this new reality, looking from clarity to chaos. So how do you find clarity in the middle of chaos? So I want to just unpack a few things that are happening right now that are actually causing some of this chaos. So we've been remote for a while. Now, I've been remote for 20 years plus, but during the pandemic, found myself coaching a lot on Zoom calls. And someone called me one day and was like, "You heard about this thing called Zoom?" I was like, "Yeah, I've been using it for a couple of years, but yeah, I can teach you about that." But the remote and hybrid disconnection is real. And what I find is that leaders are trying to figure out how culturally they connect. How do they really belong? How are they really struggling with this whole team connection? And that piece is a challenge that I'm finding as well as the overload. Now, there's this whole conversation, and I haven't even got there yet, but the AI revolution, when are saying, leaders are saying, well, it's going to replace jobs. Well, actually, what's replacing jobs right now is corporations have had a heavy bench. So we haven't even gotten into the AI revolution of jobs being replaced by AI as much as it is they were so heavy on the bench that they had to actually look at their bottom line. So high responsibility, low recovery is another issue. Managers engaged and engagement has fell from 30% to 27%. That may not seem like a lot, but when you add up all the numbers of the organizations, that's significant. And then loss of belonging. We know what's been happening with lots of things, unrest, unfair, however you want to call it, but the executive orders, I've just got to say it, have really changed the game on a lot. So people are trying to figure out how do they belong in the work environment that they have today. And fatigue has been going on for years. And I can say this as I look into the beautiful eyes of the Black women on this call and say that we've been tired for a long time. Like this didn't just start with us, right? We've been tired for a long time, way before the pandemic, because we have been carrying the lift and carrying the burden for so many years. The you know, highest educated and also the most worked individuals on the planet, not to mention in the workplace, but also in the home front as well. And then, of course, now the constant change we have today, which is the AI revolution, which I am part of and very proud to be of. But I also know that it takes the revolution, the artificial revolution at the intersection of human intelligence, as well to have us really bridge this gap. So, what's the advantage here? Let's talk about why coaching is so needed, current and relevant and prevalent in today. One, because it is the key to transformation. When we think about what's necessary today, as I look at coaches here in this space, what's necessary for us today is really to look at how do we shift leaders from giving directions and sometimes, in some cases, dominating and bullying people to be performers. But how do we look at it from a developmental perspective? And then how do we build trust in a trust recession? We have gotten to a point where we trust people less than ever before. We don't know if people are real or not. We don't know if it's a bot or not. And so when you think about how do leaders really connect, it's through human engagement. We have to talk to each other. So we also have to build trust with innovation. We have to build trust with our retention. And that is one of the problems right now. Retention is very, very low. And then managers account for 70% of team engagement. And when I say that, and when I saw that stat, what I was thinking about was, wow, if managers account for that, are they trained and developed in team engagement? Because oftentimes I'm hired to come in and do some type of team building, and that is one of the things that coaching can do. So you can see some of the principles here. I don't need to read them all out, but one of the things that I think is most important is active listening because coaching can teach you how to listen like never before. And when you can transfer that skill into others, like managers, like directors, like executives, then it really can make a difference in terms of that trusting relationship. So I wanted to share with you my system around how I help leaders to really get to the next level in their career, how to leverage coaching, and how to be more high performing and high functioning. And so you can see here there's 7 steps to it. I'm not going to unpack all of them, but I'm going to touch on one that I think is really important. So my system here goes through awareness, development, values, advocacy, networking, communication, and execution. And it spells out the word advance. The one I'm going to talk about the most is advocacy. Advocacy is so crucial right now that without that, leaders cannot become indispensable. They actually become more so bench warmers at times, high performers at times, individuals who are not seen and not heard at times. And when you don't have someone speaking about your results and how talented you are and how essential you are to the workplace, then you can easily be replaced and you can easily be let go. Not to mention that organizations are downsizing. So let's talk about this concept of from stuck to strategic. And I love with that being more strategic thinkers, more strategic leaders. So the challenge here is around mid-level leaders being overwhelmed. So that's one of the biggest issues. And really the confidence has been shaken. And I believe we may talk about this in our conversation, ways to rebuild that confidence. And the intervention is coaching, is developing a cadence and an ability to really look at how are you more aware, how can you gain more advocacy, and then you're now taking the right actions in terms of what there is to do and handle in terms of your scope of responsibility. So the transformation is really something that can happen in a very short period of time. And I like to work in 90-day chunks. My coach, one of my mentors, Dr. Ben Hardy, really looks at how do you take every quarter, quarter by quarter within a year and unpack that and get a year's worth of work out of it. Can you imagine that? How accelerated a leader can be? And a leader can do and perform, but then have what they desire to have in terms of the objectives and the goals of their organization and for themselves. So, one of the last things I want to talk about here is this legacy and mindset shift. And without a mindset shift, it's going to be hard to leave a legacy. And for me, I believe that a legacy has more to do with the leaders that you actually build as you lead. So if you're the only leader who's actually leaving a legacy and we're saying, oh, how wonderful and how amazing you are, then what legacy have you really left? We really need to be developing leaders and transferring that influence to the leaders who, when you retire, that they are still speaking your name because you left them with something. When leaders embrace coaching as their primary development tool, they shift from being successful to being significant. And then an action that I believe that leaders can take today as we're walking through this is really pause for their awareness, identifying an area where they can actually identify an area where they've actually been leading from reaction instead of intention. So having an intention. And even when I work with my clients, I start with what's our intention for today? What's our intention for today's call or conversation? And then we get into wins and accomplishments, and we get into any challenges or concerns. And then we get into what's the big area of focus for today. Staying curious is very important as well as partnering for growth and partnering with a coach, partnering with your mentor, partnering with your sponsor, and making sure that they support you in staying aware as well. And one of the things that I use with my clients is my career advancement quiz, and that quiz helps you unlock those blind spots that you might have. So here, what I want individuals to leave and take away with is just keep advancing. Whatever way that looks for you, whatever way you partner with your coach, your mentor, your sponsor, your advocate, is to really keep advancing. And that's one way that you will not be left behind. All right. So at this point, I just want to close with this inspiring mission of mine here. Leadership begins the moment you decide to grow yourself and decide to grow others on purpose. Others on purpose. And so that is what I wanted to share today.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. That was awesome. A lot of great nuggets, a lot of great information. Your framework looks awesome.
Thank you.
And it definitely aligns a lot with Real Talk and the things that we want to make sure that we share with our audience. So thank you for that. So we know coaching invites leaders to shift from problem solving to possibility thinking. When we lead with curiosity instead of control, we create a space for others to rise and grow and be their greatest. So, Dr. Perkins, we want to ask what inspired you to blend leadership strategy with coaching?
Yeah, well, it really started with some of the first opportunities that I had to lead, and I realized the struggle that I felt. So along the years of my journey, I hired a coach when I was at a pivotal point in my leadership, when I felt like I didn't feel stuck necessarily, but I felt like, what's next? What is my career path? And so looking at what are the leadership strategies, what are the things that I need to learn to help me move forward faster, but what is that next step for me? And hiring a coach gave me the purview, had me be able to see the things I couldn't see, and had me also be able to look at, wow, within 3 sessions of working with a coach, I realized that I wanted to be a certified coach. That was my pivotal moment.
Mm, thank you.
Yeah.
So, you worked with many leaders. What patterns do you notice in how people show up when they're navigating change and uncertainty?
Yeah, I noticed that they forget who they are. And if you are a lover of the movie Black Panther the way I am, there was a line in there where um, the Panther was losing. He was losing the fight, and his mother, and I like to say his mama, shouted out, "Remember who you are."
Mm.
Leaders forget that they've been through change before. They've been through adversity before. They've been through challenges before. And so they need to pull on what was that resilience that got them from that moment to where they are today, and what's the resilience that's going to take them to that next opportunity as well and get them through where they are today. Yeah.
How has your leadership journey shaped the way you coach others?
Yeah, I coach with a lot of compassion. So, and I coach with a lot of curiosity because there was a period in my career where I felt like a lot of leaders were just kind of trying to tell me what to do. And from a little girl, I mean, I was 6 years old, 6 or 7 at the beach gathering a group of young people, I'll call them children, together to build a sandcastle. I had nothing but my leadership skills and my compassion. And I was like, okay, let's build a sandcastle. And somebody had a bucket, and somebody had a shovel, and somebody had something else. And we were building a sandcastle to the point where my sister couldn't find me. She was like, you didn't hear me calling you over that loudspeaker. You didn't hear them calling you. And I was like, no, I'm like, I wasn't lost. You lost? Like, what is happening here? So even at a young age, I knew that gathering people together with their gifts, their skills, and their talents, and leveraging compassion and relationships, that's how I coach individuals. Who do you know that can help you? What do you have? What's your expertise that can move you beyond where you are today? And so I know that those are the life lessons that carried me along the way, and that's what I leverage as well.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. So, how do you balance strategy? And I think you've told us a little bit of this, but how do you balance strategy and compassion when guiding others through difficult seasons?
Yeah, so listening,
Mhm.
because when a leader, when a human is going through something difficult, they need space. They need space to be heard. They need space to be seen. And I'm a facilitator of DISC. So I'm listening to, do they have more of a preference for dominance, influence, steadiness, or conscientiousness? Because I want to speak their language in that moment when I am speaking. So I have to listen to see what their preferences are to be able to coach them more effectively. And that's one of the first things we do is we take an assessment. But I think that the bottom line is that I really want them to, again, remember who they are. And I want to take them back to a time in which their their previous self didn't realize their future self had come this far. And that's where they remember, oh, wow, you know what? I've been here before. Um, so what were the key maneuvers? What were the points? What were the opportunities you leveraged then to take you for further forward now? Yeah.
That was great. Thank you so much, Dr. Pat, for sharing all of that. And so I want to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about, ask you some questions about navigating change and uncertainty. So we know that, change comes in all types of forms and fashions, and things are revealed about a person when they actually go through change. And it really kind of tests our resilience on who we are and what we believe and our values and things like that. So we know that coaching helps a person, leaders, everyone to kind of reimagine the uncertainty that comes
Yeah.
with change and uncertainty, and gives an opportunity for growth and to recalibrate who we are and what's going on. So as we see that the landscape and how things are changing and shifting with the government and trickling down to state and local and the private sector, how things are really making our leaders try to deal with this change. Tell me and our listeners, what leadership practices have you found are most critical right now?
I would say that the leadership practices that are most critical are relationship management, right? Building trust, because everything lives on the foundation of trust. And I would also say moving with alacrity, with speed, because what I find is in situations like this, we get frozen. You remember that movie Frozen, or we get stuck and we get paralyzed, and then we can't take action, and then weeks go and months go and half a year goes, and it can be very daunting when you get to a place of desperation. But if you start to move quickly, and I'm going to say this here, and it might be a little non-conventional or unconventional, but we are gifted with certain abilities to discern certain things. So I call them downloads for myself. And I ask my clients at time, what's been downloaded to you? What do you know that you know? What have you been hearing you should do? And they always have an answer. I was journaling, or I was writing down, or I was just, I was in the shower and I was just thought about, oh, I should do this. Let's look at that. Let's look at how do we want to follow that download. So some people may call it, a spiritual download, which actually I do. Some may call it a whisper, but I know you've all heard this. Sometimes it's like you get a little pebble thrown at you, then you get a rock, then you get a boulder. It's like we're not gonna wait till the boulder hits us, right?
Right.
So we want to, when we hear that, get that down, call that person, call the person, email
Mhm.
that individual, email that individual. Moving with speed and alacrity will actually cause you to shift your perspective. Action breeds clarity. Can't
Mhm.
get clear, you got to take some action. And you're like, okay, that worked or that didn't work. So now I'm clear. Go this way, go that way. And I think that's the thing that I would say the most. And then and trust yourself. You know, when things happen, sometimes we lose faith or we lose trust in ourselves at times, but trust that you'll get through this like you did before.
Yeah, that's great. And it kind of goes to the next question that I have for you, which is how do you guide your leaders to stay grounded and focused on what they need to do? Because a lot of times things are out of their control. So,
Hmm.
how do you help them to stay focused on dealing with those things that are out of their control?
Yeah, well, I'm still a great fan, I guess you would say, of Stephen Covey. I'm still a great fan of a lot of the experts or gurus from the past. And one of the things that there is a span of control or a sphere of control, right? Looking at what can you control and what can you not control, because you want to distinguish the signal from the noise. So the signal is maybe that download that you got. The noise is all the stuff you see on social media and all the stuff you see on the news. And right now, since I'm in AI, I get a feed from ChatGPT every morning, and I get a feed from Perplexity every morning.
Mhm.
And I manage and set boundaries around when am I going to read it and when am I going to digest that information. So I need to have my tea first. I need to have meditated first. I need to have my little spiritual moment. I need to get myself right because I don't know what is going to happen, but I want to see it all at one time. And I'm like, okay, I saw it. Now let's get back to action. So I also say that you can choose to have a morning routine because we don't need anything but air and water. We need life things, survival things. But what can move our lives forward is having a morning routine and having an evening routine. And that morning routine doesn't have to be some 2 hour thing. I don't believe in those. I believe in 10 minutes here, a chunk of time here, somewhere between 30 minutes and maybe 45 minutes or so that you've gotten yourself prepared for the day. And at night, the same thing. Do you remember when we were children
Mhm.
and our parents or bigger sibling or whatever said, "What you wearing tomorrow? What you go lay out your clothes," right?
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
People don't do that. I do it.
Mhm.
I know what I'm going to wear the whole week. And
Mhm.
it may be what I call my corporate uniform, my Zoom uniform, or whatever the case may be. But the people would say, some of my colleagues on Zoom, they would say, "You're always Zoom ready." I was like, "You want a little secret? It's because I prepared a night before." That's it. That's my secret. Boom, exposed. I prepared a night before because I don't like making 50, 11 decisions in the morning. What I'm going to eat, what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to do, I know my decision threshold,
Mm.
and I try to make as many decisions that I can control the night before. And that way I can go full steam ahead in the morning. And I know what I'm going to work on. I have my action item list.
Mhm.
And I have that, my top 3 by 3 or my top 5 by 5, depending on the day. And that's what we're going to do today. And then I have at the end of the day, I have what my say to do ratio. If it's like say to do 4 out of 5, I'm good. If it's say to do 1 out of 5, I'm like, okay, you got to do better. You just got to do better. But I'm still going to be like, you got one thing done, sis.
Right.
Because I will say this, Coach Sharon, I'm going to be the best friend, the best coach, the best mentor to me.
Mhm.
I don't like spending any seconds tearing myself down and making myself feel bad because I found There's no value in that. It's just a disempowering thought. And it creates spiral. And then you down for the day, you in the bed, you on the covers, you watching Hulu on your phone, just it goes bad, dark real soon. So anyway, that is a long answer to a short question, but I just wanted to give you some insights into how do we have a productive, fulfilling, functional life. It takes something to do that. You just don't wake up looking as beautiful as you all look. It takes something, right? Right, Tara?
Takes some time. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And so I love what the nuggets that you're dropping. And so what I heard, first about the downloads and how they come to us, whether they're spiritual or whatever, and then the decision threshold. I love that because that's part of our self-care. And that's what I'm hearing from you. That's most important, putting together that routine and having that self-care. Because if we can't help ourselves, and put that into perspective, how can we be the best coach or mentor or parent or sibling or whatever our titles are for that person? I love that. So thank you for sharing that. And it kind of leads into my next question for you, which is what advice would you give to professionals who are trying to rebuild their confidence after a major career transition?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I said I'm gonna outdo anybody being my own best friend. So I have to say that, and in the same breath, I have a best friend that tries to outdo being my best friend all the time. So we are I was born in a sisterhood. I'm part of a sisterhood. We are tribal community connected people, and that pandemic pushed us into being isolated and trying to survive. And so I believe that one of the best things we can do is to be in community with people who celebrate us and not tolerate us, with people who help us remember who we are, with people who can be sort of our 360 representative, meaning you say something and they will say, well, wait a minute now. These are all your good qualities. And here's maybe one thing that I would say that's going to be a confidence builder for you that you may want to take on. But the other thing is, and those are things that we can do in community. Well, what you can do with yourself is be good to you. And that may start with your physiology. It may mean just getting up and going and taking a walk. Find your thing. Find your thing. It may be mine. Back in the day, mine used to be I had a I had an Everlast bag up in my gym.
Mhm.
I had one room that was dedicated as a gym for me, and so I had my Everlast bag. I'm dating myself. I had the TV on a monitor up there. I was watching
Mhm.
all the stuff, right? And then I would have my elliptical machine and all that, and I'd be watching, catching up on whatever I was catching up on. I ain't gonna tell y'all all that was, but whatever I was catching up on, and I had my little tapes. Listen, I knew to this, I'm true to this. So here's the deal. Find what it is for you that is empowering because
Mhm.
it might be taking a kickboxing class. It
Mhm.
might be, what is that thing that people do now? Pickleball. It might be
Mhm.
pickleball. I don't know.
Mhm.
It could be playing spades. I'm gonna be a whist player, but I play
Mhm.
spades. It may be I went to play Keno with the senior citizens, our senior group on Saturday. We start at 4, we end at 7. That's what we
Mhm.
do. And so I just like to see them because they give me so much life because they're 20 years older than me and remind me of they still laughing, they still joking, they're still talking about getting on planes and trains and automobiles. And so just don't be isolated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I love that about what you said with about be with people that will celebrate you and
Mhm.
not tolerate you. So yes, and so um my final question for you for right now is that, many leaders feel pressure to have all the answers.
Mm,
And I know you had mentioned about DISC. I'm very familiar and certified in emotional intelligence. So when I talk about emotional intelligence and being vulnerable, being able to share, as much as they're comfortable with their emotions, leaders tend to draw back on that. They don't want to have that vulnerability. How do you coach them to embrace vulnerability as a strength?
mm. I love that question. So the interesting thing is I like to reframe certain words that are hard to digest, like vulnerability, right? We're vulnerable all the time. We were vulnerable as children. Just going to school will remind you of how vulnerable you were. Being around a lot of other little kids will remind you, even as a child, you're like, I was at home safe and sound with my parents or my parent or my guardian or whomever, and now I'm in a room with 30 other children. So I like to reframe it as what are the things that you value the most. And let me just walk with me for a minute here. The things that you value the most, so your core values, right? So mine are, faith and family and finances and fascination. I love fascination, like different going to different places. My function, in terms of what I do in the world, and there is one other. I guess it's fun, but it's fascination and fun. I'll just so put those together. Um, we get triggered by our when someone pushes up against our values. So if
Mhm.
integrity is a value for you, and this is a value for me, but that kind of ties into my faith a bit as well. Um, then when you encounter someone who is not integrous, you are like, there's a new word for that not shaken, but it's something like crash out. I think that's what it's called. You like crash out, you get triggered at all the things. And when I find people who are not integrous, who don't have integrity or don't appear to have integrity, I tend to say, what is my value that I can map onto this, which is I can give them grace in the moment, right? I can still say, well, they haven't caught up with their own values. I can look at things from a different perspective than if I were just to judge them. So now let's talk about vulnerability. Oftentimes, when people are vulnerable, it's because it's pressing up against something that they don't want. They don't want to feel exposed about, or they don't want other people to know about them. And so my thing is this, what's a value that you can attach to that? So maybe it's vulnerability means to them, I'm not competent in this particular area and I don't want anybody to know. Well, if your value is, say, function, then you'll actually lean into that. I want to be more functional in this. So what can I do to do that? Well, I can tap into someone who knows, someone like Coach Sharon who knows about this particular area. And now I'm going to go to you as more of a mentor, a confidant. Can we have a confidential conversation about this particular area of vulnerability? And I'm not going to tell it in a boardroom. I'm not going to shout it out in the corporate conference room. But I am going to go to someone who I believe has congruent values that I do. And now we can have a conversation about it. And that's how you build trust. That's how you expand your vulnerability. And then the last thing I'll say about this is I'm gonna tell it before you tell it. So listen, because I can control the narrative when I tell it. If you tell it, then now we got to backpedal and all the things. So I open up a space of what are you most afraid of? And I asked one of my clients that question. It was either this week or last week. I asked, Today is Thursday, so it might have been last week, but they brought up something and I said, well, what are you most afraid of? And without divulging confidentiality, I do coach moms. I'm not a mom. I have 12 nieces and nephews, so I haven't birthed children out of my womb, but I have birthed them out of my heart. And one of the things that came up was I'm afraid of not preparing my child for this world.
Mm.
And since when she said it, it was like it was an exhale moment. And I said, now we can go to work. So what you're doing, Coach Sharon, in terms of leading people to the river, so to speak, of vulnerability and letting them dip in and coming out, sort of baptized on the other side, right? Is giving them freedom. And if they can see that exposing their vulnerability to a trusted person like yourself will actually create freedom for them, then now as their coach, you can go to work.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so I know we've been talking about leadership, and I know that leadership it's not just about influence, right? It really is about the impact you leave behind. And I am one of those people who are just like, I need to make sure that whatever I'm doing is impactful. As a leader, though, they may not know what that is, right? And I know that when we're coaching, when we're being coached, it causes us to ask not just what we're achieving, right? But who we are becoming. And so one of the questions I have for you is how can coaching principles like curiosity and confidentiality, active listening, self-awareness, how
Mhm.
can they transform the way leaders engage with their teams? And not just team leads, but maybe going up the hierarchy of leadership too.
Yeah, so that's when I say interesting, I mean interesting in a good way, right? It's an interesting question because I don't know that there's one particular answer for this. But when I think about it, I think that hmm, so I'm going to say it this way. I think that um, it creates a space for at least three things, right? It creates a space for a deeper level of awareness, a deeper level of advocacy, and a deeper level of then taking the action. Because I want to go back to the word impact, if I may. Could I go back to that? Okay, awesome. So I think we all could agree that impact from a coach's perspective doesn't just hang on the result, the last result, doesn't necessarily just hang on the promotion, but it hangs on the transformation. Have they evolved to and become, like you said, a different leader? Have they looked at themselves as more capable? They looked at themselves as more prepared or ready. Do other people, and this is where I'm getting to, do other people say, you seem different?
Mm.
Because it's who they're being now. So the impact, I believe, of a coach is transforming the reflection that they have not only in the mirror for themselves, but the reflection that they're creating for other leaders in the world. Now they can say, wow, that person high performed on that project. They exceeded expectations on that particular opportunity. and whoever's looking at you, because there's always somebody looking up at you. Sometimes they say down at you, sideways at you, whatever the case may be, but there's eyes on you. But they can look at you and not just admiration. They can look at you as a leader, or look at someone as a leader and go, that's aspirational. So it's a difference between I admire you than now I aspire to be like you,
Mm.
you know? So I think that's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
I actually love that answer. It kind of leads into the next question. Because when we're talking about impact, we're talking about legacy, we're talking about what you are leaving behind that will shape the way that people lead in the future, right? And so, the question is, what legacy do you hope leaders will leave when they integrate coaching principles into their everyday decision making?
I hope that leaders leave a legacy of leaders, of highly influential, highly impactful leaders who um, can exceed the expectations that even that leader who's causing their leadership to occur. Any great leader wants their, and I'll just use the term like their direct report or their mentee or their intern or whoever it is to do better than they did. I even remember back in the day when, parents would want their children to do better. Baby, I want you to do better than I did, right?
Yes.
And no shade to parents. I'm not a parent, so I'm not judging. I'm just looking, observing that we got to a point where I believe um, there was a collapsing of I want you to do better, but I'm going to do so much better for you that some may not know how to do better for themselves.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's powerful.
yeah. So even with I'm the youngest, so I have to say that. But y'all did the math on 20 years here, 20 years there. So my youngest, and I do call them mine, my nieces and nephews, my youngest is 15. I think he just turned maybe 16. His dad, my firstborn, is 45. And um our conversations, although they may be different in the generations, I want them to do better. So I don't give them all the answers. Just like my mom, my stepfather didn't give me all the answers. My mama said, listen, I sacrificed I changed my linen closet into a library for you. You got a desk and a chair and a set of encyclopedias that we can't afford. You gonna figure it out. And she was a school teacher. You get stuck, mama's here, or ask your sisters. And I went through the stair steps of asking my sisters one, two, three, one of them had the answer. But she said, no, you are more than equipped to figure it out or discern what you should do. And I want to share this story because I know it gives some context. When I was in high school, so I went in as valedictorian, right? So you get a rude awakening when you go in and you realize, oh, it's like 50 other valedictorians in this school. Okay, so I'm special, but I ain't that special. I'm smart, but I ain't that smart, right? So you start realizing comparison is a thief of joy, but you still start looking around. I think I was a sophomore in high school, and I was in a history class. And in that history class, I would say his name, but it won't give him any goodness. I won't say his name. So, God bless him. His history was not congruent to my history. I'll just say it that way. So I said to my mom, I'm like, Ma, I can't go to that class because it's not teaching me anything, one, that I don't already know, and two, I don't see myself.
Mm.
I may have some different words, but I just knew we weren't in there. And I just can't, I can't be in that. I just can't do it. And she said, what are you going to do? She didn't say, well, you got to go to that class and you got to get an A out that class. She didn't say, well, you can't just withdraw from a class and you're in high school. You can't just, I said, well, I've already talked to the counselor. We had counselors in high school, or I talked to someone in the office, and I told them, and she said, okay. So I said, I'm gonna find another class. I'm gonna go to summer school. He's like, you gonna go to summer school? I said, yeah, I'm gonna go to summer school, Mom. I said, I'll figure it out. I want to find an African American studies class. And so she said, okay, I can help you do that. And we found one that was in walking distance for me. And I aced it. I set the curve in that class because I saw people who looked like me. I heard stories of things, people who looked like me, who, and I was like, this is what I've been looking for, right? Now, I don't consider myself militant at all, but I know what I know and I know what I don't know from a standpoint of you're not gonna bamboozle me. So the full circle in that is leaders and those who are leading other human beings in whatever role or function that is, we need to do a lot more advocating and supporting instead of just telling and giving answers and directing and all of that and navigating, because we need to learn how to navigate our lives and our careers and the richness of that. And learn how to, it goes full circle back to strategically thinking about our lives and our careers. Because at the end of the day, we are responsible for that. Nobody else is. And then nobody's come to save us, nobody's come to rescue us. And so the best person to actually connect with and partner with is a coach who's been trained and developed and how to help you navigate your life, how to help you navigate your concerns and your fears and your aspirations and your career and your leadership. I mean, the list goes on. We have coaches in every modality of life. And
Mm.
so we need, this time more than ever, it's time to partner with a coach.
I really like that. You kind of answered the other question I was going to ask you. So I'm going to ask you a different question.
Okay. Okay.
And it's, what legacy do you hope that your work leaves on the people that you've either led or coached?
Yeah. So I one of my missions is that all leaders have access to a career advancement system, roadmap, blueprint, playbook, something that's going to help them navigate, and a coach to guide them along the way, right? So that's one of my missions. My legacy is that we will remember as human beings that we are here for a purpose and we are here with a calling. And if we can, at the intersection of that, our purpose and our calling, build community around that, this entire world will advance. This entire world will advance. So I think that that's really what's missing. We forgot that there was literally, you were born, the air you breathe, the reason why there's oxygen in your lungs is because you have the opportunity to be purpose driven. And the other reason is because there is some kind of zone of genius and some calling on your life that we as coaches can help awaken that remembrance of. And then if everybody's operating from that perspective, there's no lack, There's nothing missing. There's nothing wanting. We are rich and prosperous and well taken care of because we take care of each other in community. So that's it may sound very futuristic or it might even sound delusional, but I tell you, it is what I would hope and wish for um in this life. Yeah.
No, I really love that. And, we use words in this space like being intentional, right?
Mhm.
Being purposeful, intentional. That's Coach Sharon's word.
I love
Um,
it. I love
word
it.
for the year. Being purposeful, but I've been thinking a lot about my calling and being called and just the way that people come to me, things happen that I know are all guiding me towards what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And so, you know, first of all, we thank you so much for this presentation, for, you know, how you view leadership through a coaching lens. Um, we as coaches know that small, consistent actions that are rooted in purpose
Mhm.
and supported can create lasting change, right? Coaching is what invites us to lead with awareness, accountability, and grace. You actually said awareness and advocacy and
Advocacy.
action, right?
Exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that starts where we are, right? And so in this conversation with you, we were reminded that leadership isn't just about control. And I heard you use that word. About connection. I heard you use that word in the form of building community. It's about connection, clarity, courage. And when we lead from the soul, guided by purpose and that coaching mindset, we not only change how we show up, but how we help others show up,
Mhm.
right? And
Right.
so I'm going to pass this over to Tara for some actionable takeaways from today's session.
Beautiful.
Dr. Pat, we'd like to ask you to please help our viewers and tell our listeners what's one practical step someone can take today to start leading themselves and others with more intention?
Mm. I love that. That's one of my favorite words too, leading with intention. So thank you for that. I think one step they can take is to gain their have the courage to gain the awareness about where they are in their life and in their career. So you can't course correct, when you're in a car, you when you go off track, that GPS will say recalibrating or re something, it's getting you back on track. But again, it's still because there's a map. There's a place you are here, and then there's a place that you're going. So we can really look at, and a leader can look at, well, what's the gap? And be courageous enough to expose the gap, right? Just expose the gap. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong and bad here. It's just I'm a independent individual contributor and I want to be a senior manager or a manager right now. I like to jump 2 steps, but anyway, you want to be a manager. Well, then what's the gap? Is it my communication skills? Is it because I don't have advocacy right now? Is it because I don't have a way to really speak about my results? Is it because I don't even know what positions are in line with me being a manager? Do I need to leave the place where I'm at? I don't know, but expose the gaps and have the courage to do that. And if you don't have the courage on your own, borrow courage. If you cannot borrow courage, buy courage from a coach.
Mhm. Mm. Thank you. Thank you. So tell our listeners, where can they learn more about you, your speaking engagements, and your leadership coaching work?
Well, thank you for that. So I am Pat E. Perkins everywhere on every social media platform. The best way to connect with me, though, is on LinkedIn. And with LinkedIn, I am again Pat E. Perkins. You'll see probably a pink shirt because I wear pink all the time, but you'll see me there under Dr. Pat E. Perkins. Um, and if you connect with me, I will support you by sending you access to my career advancement quiz that will help you shore up the gaps because you will see where those gaps are in your own career advancement based on my 7-step advanced system. So I'd love to be able to gift your audience with that, but just connect with me or DM me on any of those platforms and I'll send it along your way.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Pat. And I think in these times that is really needed for people to try to reimagine where their career is going. And with you as their coach, I know that they'll be able to get that framework in place and move forward. So thank you so much for being with us. We are honored that you are able to share your message and your light with us and our listeners who's going to be listening in the future. We really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate each and every one of you as well. I know you're phenomenal coaches, phenomenal women, and phenomenal human beings. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And to our listeners, we want to thank you for joining us for our Real Talk Coaching conversation on our podcast. If there's something that you heard today that stirred your spirit, made you think, or gave you hope, make sure that you share with us in the comments below. Like and subscribe this channel so you can be notified for every episode that comes up. And come back for more information. And if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, or you just want to share a word with us, you can email us at info@realtalkcoaching.net. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.